Welcome everybody. It's the whatever month it is. It's February. So this is the February workshop. This month is something I'm really excited about because we're going to revisit this work that we did years ago in the fellowship. We called it the fellowship because I couldn't come up with another name back then. And I want to give you a little bit of history about it, why it happened, and then we're going to sort of dive into it and talk about it. Just a reminder, the chat is we keep getting people telling us it's like, I mean, this makes me feel a little bad to be honest, but people keep telling me it's the most valuable part of the whole workshop. I'm just kidding about feeling bad about it. I'm glad it's really valuable. To the few of you that find it distracting, I've got it. This is my suggestion. Just you don't have to look at it, right? Just you don't even have to have it on your screen. But to those of you who find it valuable, please keep using it. The other thing I would just suggest to those of you who can, camera on is really, really helpful and all the distractions off. And I think this topic is especially true for this. I can guarantee you that if you'll be present for the next 127 minutes or 90 minutes, sorry, 90 minutes, if you'll be present for the next 90 minutes, there will be insights that will occur to you. And the insights are the most valuable part of this experience once a month. It's just setting aside time to think about the work you do rather than do the work you do. And the insights will be different for, Amy is sitting right next to Dick on my Zoom screen. The insight for Amy will be different than the insight for Dick, even though they're at the same meeting. So just sort of settle in for a bit. I know we're often like rushing around and so much to do, right? And let's talk a little bit about the fellowship. So let me give you a little background. I was living in New Zealand and we had these online courses. Does everybody remember back when there was like online courses for everything? Like everybody's selling online courses? Well, we built an online course, I think before online courses were cool. And as I recall, it was called the RFA program, the Real Financial Advisor program. And people loved it. And it was great for business. But over the course of 12 to 18 months, maybe a year and a half, I started to notice this thing show up that people would take the course and then not do anything. And I don't know if you know this, but completion rates, how many of you, I mean, you've probably all been, this is a rhetorical question. You don't need to raise your hand, but I know I've purchased online things and then actually never even logged in, right? Let alone started it and not completed. The completion rates for online courses are less than 5%. But I started noticing that, like we had really, really great reviews and people saying they loved it, but I noticed like, man, people weren't doing much. What matters is that we do stuff, right? And so that's where this belief that I started noticing, like tactics can often become a place to hide. Right? And I noticed myself doing that this week. Funny story. I'm spending too much time on my phone. So I spent a couple of hours on my phone researching the best book, app, or tool. And then I got to research that for another 2 weeks. And then I got to figure out, like, because if I can just research which app will help me spend less time on my phone, I don't have to stop spending time on my phone. Like I caught myself doing it, and the irony was not lost on me. Right? If we can just read one more productivity book, if I can just watch one more video about how to deadlift, I don't actually even have to go to the gym, which is awesome, right? So I started feeling that, and I was like, okay, what makes the difference for me between doing stuff and finding places to hide? What makes the difference? And to me, it was confidence. Like I noticed when I felt confident, I did stuff. And the fact that I didn't know how to do it didn't stop me. Like I could find out real quickly. I could learn as I went, right? I could take off in the plane before we built it. Do you know that? Like all of those sort of metaphors work when I feel confident. So that was to me, I was like, okay, what could I do? Well, let's build something around protecting confidence. So we tore up the old online courses we had. The attempt was like, could we remind ourselves why we got in the industry in the first place? Could we create some way to like a confidence forge, a way to feel good about the work that we're doing? And I was like, what can I write? And I was like, I'm gonna write a manifesto because that's what I do when I get all fired up is I write manifestos. So I was like, okay, I'll write this thing. When I was like, what would it be? And I was like, okay, you know, what if I just came up with the 21 declarations? Like, what if I came up with the 21 most important things? And at the time, Jack Butcher, some of you may know Jack's work, Visualize Value. Jack was not Jack Butcher yet. And Jack was a friend of mine. And so Jack did the design for the workbook you're about to see. And it's it's one of the things I'm most proud of in terms of, and it was fun to go back and revisit it. Like I'm proud of almost every word, and I'm certainly proud of the design. And so the goal of the fellowship was to remind all of us, to remind myself why I'm here. It felt like I was trying to capture everything I'd learned in 20 years of interaction with what I think are the best financial planners on the planet. The US, the UK, South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, all over Europe. So that's the background. So this is the Jack Butcher design for the declarations, the fellowship workbook. And 21 declarations, almost all of them have three subheads. Again, part of what I'm trying to share today is about how to create something. This might be useful for some of you. Like you want to create something about what you stand for, the work you do, the thing you hand out to clients. It might be helpful to say, you know what, I'm going to just decide that there's going to be 11 topics. And each one's going to have three subheads. And I'm just going to make that's what this thing's going to be. So this will be available in the portal when we're done. So you can go in and download this, print it out, work through it. Any questions about that? Let's see. Casey, do you want to unmute yourself and let's just talk about Declaration 3?
Hi everyone. Yeah, so I have worked in corporate when I left, it was 20 years, and I needed to unlearn some of the things that I had learned in corporate. And one that particularly stuck out for me was keep playing in traffic to get hit. And
Mm.
I've probably repeated that phrase hundreds of times at this point, as I've sat in different rooms, to remind others that we need to keep showing up in the ways that are authentic to ourselves, because when we do, people will naturally find us.
Talk to me a little bit, Casey, about how the idea of playing in traffic, we could phrase it a lot of different ways, like increase your luck surface area is another way I like to think about that. It's the only skill I have, I've decided, is like in terms of like what do I have? Somebody asked me once, like, what would I tell my kids? If somebody wanted to build a business like yours, what would you tell them? I have nothing to tell them except play in traffic. Like there's nothing else repeatable. So when you go to do that, and I'm going to use this as an opportunity. One more thing, the Lao Tzu quote: "Be who you really are and go the whole way." Almost everything we do at the society is just a righteous trick to help you do that, right? Well, a tactic, okay, great. Let's talk about tactics so that you can do that. But what we really want is a whole bunch of financial planners who are really doing work that they care deeply about, because then we know they'll have massive impact on 100 to 300 people. Well, as soon as you go to share who you really are and go the whole way in the form of anything, a book, a video, a podcast, a business, a logo, right? A website, this thing shows up. And I know you and I've talked about this before. This thing, what would you call this thing that shows up?
So I don't know how to articulate what the thing is, but when you've been told for 20 years that you're not allowed to show up a certain way, it's definitely something that sits in, and you have to fight against everything that you know to be able to show up authentically. And so now I'm able to, I don't overthink the work that I do, the words that I write. I've been writing for 9 years now, actually. And on a weekly basis, I think the stuff is good. Some people are like, and it's always interesting, Carl, you've said the same thing. It's always interesting. The thing that you think is so amazing, no one shows up for that. And the thing you're like, it's fine. That's what people show up for and highlight. It's letting go of any other beliefs that you have and just do the thing, whatever that thing is that's authentic to you and what
Yeah.
for me what you're led to put out in the world. And those who need what you have will find you.
Thanks, Casey. Let's talk real quick about the programming. Stephanie, are you around? Are you able
I'm
to unmute
here.
yourself?
Yeah.
What do you mean by the programming?
Well, Casey was
So in
saying,
reference to the thing that shows up.
yes, yes, because Casey was saying, being in corporate for so many years, and she was taught she couldn't show up that way. So to me, that's, hearing a message from the outside for so long, we take it in, we like absorb it as truth, and then it speaks back to us. So you kind
Yeah.
of have to deprogram from
Yeah.
whatever messages we got, whether well-intentioned or not.
How do you do that?
That's a good question. I'm turning 58 next week, and I haven't figured it out.
I said that last night. I'm like, man, I can't wait to figure out what I'm going to be when I grow up.
Yeah.
It's really interesting, the process of deprogramming, right? I often think about it as rewiring. So for me, like if we get really specific about the fear of creating a thing, and this fear could be I'm about to walk into a meeting and give one of the other declarations, right? Like we have opinions. Like I'm a huge fan of opinionated financial advice. Like I'm so sick of watered down, weak sauce financial advice that's like designed to cover yourself, right? I love when somebody takes the time to thoroughly diagnose and then be strong in the prescription based on everything I know. This is what I think you should do. Okay. What else stands out to you? Thomas, are you around?
Yeah, I'm here. Happy to share. So I went to school for financial planning and I passed the CFP, but as part of my program. But my first job, I felt all this pressure and like I had to like be the smartest person. I had to know it. Especially because some of my peers, like some of my superiors, didn't have a CFP designation, so they were like, I had all this pressure, and it made it like really stressful. And going through the fellowship, and there's a lot of declarations that deal with this, asking you questions, listening, diagnosing before giving prescription. But it just helped me have like as a young professional, just a total mindset shift where it's like I don't have to know everything about every financial planning topic, but I can focus on one thing, caring about my client, asking good questions. And if I don't know the answer, then having the confidence and the being comfortable saying that's a really good question. Let me do some research and get back to you on that. And I've never had pushback on that. In fact, if anything, clients are grateful that I write it down because they're like, oh, he's really taking his time to give me a well thought out answer. Like so, yeah. So I was just the fellowship in whole was really good. I just observed it, especially as a young professional, a totally different spot before and after. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Thomas. Richard, what are you thinking?
The one that sticks out to me and has stuck out for a while is we simplify number 13. Um,
Yeah.
I think Carl, you had a video that was posted on YouTube a while back, but it said we can't make it simple enough. And
Yeah.
I think that certainly struck a chord with me. But I continue to find with clients, one, I've simplified ways that I talk about money with folks so much that honestly I'm afraid when I show it to them that they're just gonna be like, this is too
Right.
basic, this is too simple. I mean, I feel like every single time with a client. And then there are times when I get follow-up questions that couldn't be more basic, right? And are
Yeah.
just clear, like really, really basic misunderstandings that I'm not faulting them on. It's just a reminder that even when it is simple as I possibly think it can be, it still can't be simple enough for folks that are not spending time thinking about money every day to know.
I don't know how to emphasize this enough. I've been warned my entire career, and it used to scare me a lot about this place. People felt really like they needed to warn me about this place called Too Simple. The thing that I think the mindset shift for you, I just try to emphasize this, is you're not talking about simplistic. There's a big difference between simplistic and elegantly simple. There's a big difference. Elegantly simple, and I wish I could pull this sketch up real quick, but I won't take the time. Imagine I think you've maybe seen it. It's a line and it goes into like a ball of yarn and then it comes out the other side. Simplistic's on the left side, right? And this was Oliver Wendell Holmes' quote, "I wouldn't give a fig," which is just still one of my favorite quotes because it uses the word fig. "I wouldn't give a fig for the simplicity on this side of complexity. But I'd give," and there's debate about whether he said my right arm or my life, but I'm going to go with life. "But I'd give my life for the simplicity on the other side." And I think if you understand that simplicity on the other side in my sketch is labeled elegant simplicity. So if you understand, people who should be selling shoes but are instead pretending to be financial advisors, they're simplistic. You are elegantly simple, right? You've gone through that ball of yarn, the nuance, the edge cases. You've calculated it a million times. You know the difference between standard deviation. You know the difference between Knightian risk and uncertainty. You know what standard deviation means. Like, you know how to calculate a mortgage payment or build an amortization table. And if you don't remember, you can go back and find it, right? You know how to do all those things. When you say, you know what, after everything we've looked at and all the experience I've had, I think you should do this. And that answer is really, really simple. That's a completely different experience than the person who should be selling shoes. Yeah, my entire career has been built on being too simple. Too simple. And I'm not even sure I'm there yet. I need to even get simpler. Vincent, what's happening? What do you want to talk about?
Yeah, sure. I think that the one thing that I helped me the most is basically saying marketing.
Marketing equals
We
impact?
believe marketing equals impact. Yeah, because
Yeah.
I say I struggle with marketing. But I think some video or somewhere that you also said that marketing also means sharing love, right? Sharing the love to other people. I think that completely changed my mindset because before marketing to me is just trying to get people to like me, trying to get people to book appointment.
Right.
It's all about me.
Right.
But now by I think it completely shift my mindset from focusing on myself to focusing on others. I think
Wow.
it's become more enjoyable, and then I just find I also become more confident in asking for appointment in my newsletter. I used to just send out my newsletter without any like call to action, but now I add the call to action to ask people if you find it valuable, right?
Yeah.
Why don't you
It's
just
so good.
book an appointment and we can go through and see what I can help you with. So it totally changed how I approach newsletters and marketing.
It's so good. Yeah, thank you. It's so well said. Yeah, I think, and just as a pointer, next month Blair will be our guest again, and we'll be talking about this exact problem. And one of the things Blair says is there's expert you, and then there's salesperson you. And you've thought about them differently your whole career. Like, you love being expert you. You hate being salesperson you. And what Blair is saying is, like, we just need to change that. Like, you could sell like an expert, right? You can sell like an expert. That doesn't make you feel. And one of the keys to selling like an expert to me is that service idea. Like, if somebody rejects my advice, my opinion, if I'm thinking about it as out of honestly, how do I compound kindness in the world? Like, if that's really where I'm coming from, or marketing as an act of love, I know I can make an impact in your life. Apparently, I'm not communicating that very well. Like, if that's the approach, like if you object to my work, it's just because I must have missed something. It's not a rejection of me. It's like, oh, I gotta go. I apparently this is a puzzle I haven't solved yet, and I care deeply about you, and so I'm gonna make one more attempt. And if it's not a good fit, it's not for you. That's fine. I move on. And with that, cheers, everybody. Have a great I don't even know what February. Have a great February. We'll see you next month. This month's workshop was about, I think it was really about confidence, using the fellowship as the sort of entry point for the discussion. What insight occurred to you during the call? Matt, what would you tell him?
I think it's just to, like I was just saying just now, just to try things, even if they're, well, potential backlash, who knows, but just to, yeah, really not just think these things and have these thoughts and have these great discussions, but actually then put it into practice. So go for it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That was sort of the premise of the. I mean, I literally felt like I ripped up all my past work and was like, no, this, right? Like that was sort of what I was trying to capture. It was like, and it was out of frustration from myself, obviously, and other people not doing things.
Yeah, so true.
Yeah.
I lived in Australia for 5 years, and when I came back to the UK, where I'm now, everyone said, "Oh, I'd never come back. I'd never come back. Why'd you come back?" And it's like, well, if you want to go, try it. Go for it. I mean,
Yeah.
but you're right. People say these things, they just
Yeah.
don't do them. So
Yeah, and as I'm saying that, like deep empathy for everybody because I do the same thing. Like there's a whole list of things, which is why I'm interested in having people call me on that, and that's why we built the membership. Was the idea of like, what are things you saying you're going to do, and how can we either as an empathetic hug or a punch in the nose help you do them, right? So thanks for that, Meredith. What would you say to a person who, if you were asked, what's the one thing that stood out? What was the one thing that you took away? What would you say?
I don't know if this is really one thing, but I think it's all wrapped up in what you were saying about confidence.
Mm.
That I'm further along than I thought.
Mm.
When I look through that list
Mm.
of where I was when I started, doing this work with you, and it's okay to keep going with the rest. Like I'm
Mm.
not alone in not being there. I'll never be there.
Yeah.
There's work to be done, and that's okay.
Yeah. I've come to the conclusion recently that that tension will never be resolved.
Probably.
And
I'm sure.
to learn to, this is the phrase I was playing around with 2 days ago, to learn to be content in my discontent, right? To learn to just be like, that tension, that discontent, that feeling that I want to grow and keep pushing is, I'm content with that.
I like the way that you phrase that, actually, content in your discontent, because the truth is we're forever evolving, and you
Yeah.
hope that you always will get better in all realms that you're
Yeah.
interested in, at any rate.
Yeah. And isn't it cool that the work you're doing for yourself is actually directly applicable to the work you do for clients?
So true.
You know, who hasn't? Oh, Richard, I haven't asked you what if you just got one insight.
I think it was a refresher for me on using the 21 declarations as um, frankly, to revisit them more often. I mean, I did the fellowship 3 or 4 years ago and remember being sort of on fire after doing it of like, oh yeah, this is it. Like, this is it. I think today, as I'm looking at some of them, I go, oh wow, I can see, wouldn't have known it maybe because it wasn't fresh on my mind, but I can see where parts of the way I interact with clients, I can trace back exactly to a few years ago and reading these things for the first time or having them solidify. And so it was affirming in that way. But I think it also, I mean, I didn't realize we could download I didn't realize you'd given access to download the document that lays it out with the paragraphs on each one, but have that sort of pinned, frankly, just to keep it sort of almost as like an ongoing checklist of like, hey, what of these 21, what do I need to be working on? Or what if I had neglected or not maybe put time towards and attention towards? But yeah, maybe just like an ongoing infrastructure to encourage myself, but also assess how I'm interacting with folks.
Yeah, that was one of the like things I barely dared to hope was that it could act as a, because I know anytime I clarify, my values, and I put it in the ground, like it
Yeah.
acts as sort of a rallying cry for me. And I was hopeful that we could pull something off like that. So thank you. So Kendall, let me switch gears and just ask you,
Sure.
if somebody was outside your office and they asked you a different question this time, you came out, you just spent 90 minutes of your life on the workshop. What are you going to do?
Mm.
What action will you take because of today's workshop?
Yeah, that's really good. Um, it's probably gonna be much different than I would have answered on the first question, but I like the way you changed that a little bit because now it's getting me thinking about action. I think it's like one of the things that came to my mind is I still do so much editing of my material, and I'm not really that good at it.
Yeah.
But sometimes I'm like, I don't want to send this over to, this person, even though they're a lot better than me. So I think editing my material. The other thing I was thinking about is I think there's probably more opportunity for me to uh, we do just something called a getting acquainted conversation before we even would bring them in. I think I can get out of that more because I don't really think I have unique ability for that, but I probably have unique ability once we know they're qualified. I think there's probably people better than me at qualifying. So I'm too nice. I want to help everybody. So I think
Yeah.
that would probably be a good one to fire myself from. So
Yeah.
those are a couple, but those are excellent questions.
Yeah. Those are really great. It's so interesting to me on that, like like you would never see the dentist in the like initial like check, flossing of the teeth, cleaning the teeth. Oh, I'll get you ready for Dr. Smith. She'll be in a minute. The other piece of firing yourself that we talked about specifically today was like that gets you away from the releasing fear too. The shipping fear. Like I'm going to put a post out. Well, it's not your job to decide if you're going to put it out. It's not your job to decide if it's any good. It's just your job
Mm,
to write it. So
good. That's good.
what you just watched was a short little clip of the February workshop for the Society of Advice. I think you would love the entire thing. In February, we called it actually the Fellowship Festival. The Fellowship is a little manifesto that I wrote back in 2019 about the value of a real advisor. In fact, I put in it what I feel like are the 21 declarations of a real financial advisor. It felt to me like a rallying cry, like I wanted to put a flag in the ground because I know how valuable the work you do is to the world, right? And I know, and I don't know if you've noticed, I'm pointing out my window, right? The people out there aren't feeling any less anxious about their money right now. They aren't feeling any less anxious about their money right now. And having a real financial planner step into the breach is the only solution I can really think of. And so that's what we talked about in February. In fact, one of my favorite moments in the call, I did a ton, over 60 minutes of spot coaching. And a lot of the spot coaching was about the declarations. And one of them is we share our work. And another one is we know marketing equals impact. And those two things, sharing our work and knowing that marketing equals impact, that brings up, oh, geez, man, if I need to share. Oh, and there's another one of the declarations. I can't remember. I'm just looking down at the list here real quick. We have opinions. So join the society. Here's the deal. I don't know how to help you understand what we do there at these monthly workshops. So we finally just made it easy. When you join, your first month is free. So come and see for yourself. You'll get this month's workshop along with the workbook that goes with it, which you can print out and keep forever, right? And you can attend next month's live workshop to get a sense of what the Society of Advice is all about and how it can be helpful for you. And if it's a good fit, guess what? You'll stay. And if it's not a good fit, you'll cancel. High fives, hugs next time we see each other. It's all fine, right? It may not be for you, but come find out for yourself. So just go to thesocietyofadvice.com, thesocietyofadvice.com. Join now, get access to the February workshop along with the workbook that goes with it, and you can attend our March workshop in addition, which is going to be amazing, right? So go to thesocietyofadvice.com and join now. Cheers, my friends.